Story 1. It started on a Tuesday. I remember because I was home alone, eating leftover Thai food and watching reruns of a show I've seen a dozen times just to fill the silence. Around 2 a.m., I was dozing off on the couch when the doorbell rang. Not once, not twice, just one single chime. Short, sharp, and loud enough to jolt me upright. I sat there for a second, frozen, waiting to hear it again, but it didn't come. I muted the television and listened. Nothing. I stood up slowly and went to the door, looked through the peephole. No one. The street outside was quiet. The porch light was still on. I opened the door. Empty front yard. I stepped out and glanced around. Not even a car passed by. I chalked it up to a dream, maybe a weird sound from the show. But then, the next night, it happened again. Exactly 2:06 a.m. This time, I was already in bed. I heard the chime echo through the hall, and my stomach turned before I even opened my eyes. I grabbed my phone. 2:06. I got up fast, heart pounding, and crept to the door. Same routine. Looked through the peephole. No one. I opened the door. Still nothing. But this time, I noticed something. The porch light flickered. Not a bulb issue. A stuttering pulse, like interference. Then it stopped. I shut the door, locked it, double-checked the windows, and went back to bed, trying to calm myself. Maybe a faulty chime. Maybe a neighbor is messing around. But then it happened again. Wednesday night. Same time. By Thursday, I was done pretending it was a coincidence. I installed a cheap security cam with night vision and motion sensors. I even set an alarm for 2:05 so I could be wide awake when it happened. And it did. 2:06 a.m. Sharp. The chime rang, and I jumped up to check the monitor. The camera showed the porch clearly. The light flickered just like before, but no one was there. The chime played. The motion detector lit up, but the feed was empty. Just empty concrete and grass, and the faint buzz of the bulb above the door. I rewound the footage. Watched it, frame by frame. Nothing approached. Nothing triggered the lens. It was like the air itself pressed the button. Friday came, and I didn't sleep. I sat on the couch, lights off, television off, door locked, eyes fixed on the monitor. When 2:06 came, I waited for the chime. It rang. Loud. Sharp. My skin crawled. The porch light didn't just flicker this time. It cut out completely. The screen on the monitor went black for 3 seconds. When it came back, something stood at the edge of the camera's range. A silhouette. Tall. Thin. Unmoving. I leaned closer. The shape was off. Not quite human. Long arms. Head tilted. No clear features. Just there. I blinked. The screen flickered again, and it was gone. I didn't sleep after that. The next night, I unplugged the camera, unplugged the chime, everything. Didn't matter. At 2:06, I heard the ring anyway. Loud. In my bones. Not through speakers. Through the walls. I covered my ears, tried to drown it out, but it played once and stopped. I sat there, knees pulled to my chest, whispering to myself that it wasn't real. Then I heard knocking from the inside of the front door. I stood frozen, eyes locked on the door. That slow, deliberate knocking echoing through my chest like a heartbeat that didn't belong to me. It wasn't loud, but it was precise. 3 knocks, evenly spaced, soft like fingers against wood. I backed away, breath shallow, palms sweaty. My phone was on the coffee table and every part of me screamed to call someone, anyone. But I didn't move. The knocking stopped. Silence stretched out for nearly a minute. Then I heard footsteps. Not outside. Inside. On the second floor. I don't remember moving, but I found myself in the kitchen with a knife in one hand and my phone in the other. I dialed 911. The dispatcher asked me to stay calm, but my voice shook so hard I could barely get the words out. I told her someone was in the house. She asked if I could see them. I said no. I didn't want to look. She told me officers were en route. and to stay on the line. That's when I heard something drop upstairs. Something small, a soft clink, like metal on wood. I crept to the foot of the stairs, phone still pressed to my ear. I whispered into it, asking if she could hear the noise. She said yes. "Stay downstairs," she said. "Don't engage." I told her the door had been locked. Windows, too. I didn't understand how anyone could have gotten in. I could barely hear her over my own heartbeat. Then something made me look up, just for a second, just to be sure. There was someone standing at the top of the stairs, but it wasn't someone. It was me, or something that looked like me. Same clothes, same messy hair, but wrong. Skin is too pale, eyes too wide, a smile so stretched it looked carved into the face, and it was holding something. My doorbell camera, wires still dangling from it. The dispatcher's voice broke through. "Sir, are you safe?" I couldn't answer. My voice caught in my throat. The thing at the top of the stairs started moving down. Slow steps, one at a time, as if it was savoring every sound, every creak of the wood beneath its feet. I backed away, dropped the knife. I turned and ran to the back door, yanked it open, and bolted into the yard barefoot. I didn't stop running until the red and blue lights filled the street and the officers were holding me down, asking what happened. They searched the house, found nothing. No signs of forced entry, no prints, no camera. Just one thing out of place. On my pillow upstairs, they found a photograph, a Polaroid, taken from the doorway. It showed me sleeping in bed, but my eyes were open. Story 2. We were 17, bored, and just stupid enough to think we were invincible. It was spring break, and there was nothing to do in our tiny town. No parties, no road trips, just long nights hanging out in Kyle's basement watching horror movies and daring each other to act like idiots. That's how the whole thing started. An old movie with kids messing with a haunted house. Someone joked that we should do the same, and someone else mentioned the house on Miller Lane. The one at the end of the block with boarded windows and a yard that hadn't been mowed in years. Rumors said it was abandoned. Others said a man still lived there but hadn't been seen in over a decade. The lights were always off. Mail piled up. Grass was dead. It looked like a place where bad things happened and never got cleaned up after. So of course, we dared Kyle to ding-dong ditch it. We all piled into his car and drove out, high on adrenaline and snacks. It was after midnight, quiet, no traffic, just the hum of street lights and the occasional bark of a dog far off. The house looked even worse in person. Windows boarded, the door cracked down the middle. The bell was one of those old metal buttons that probably hadn't worked since the 90s. Kyle laughed and said, "This thing's probably dead," but he pressed it anyway. One long hold. We waited. Nothing. No lights, no movement, no sound. We laughed, called it a bust. Then Kyle turned to us and said, "We all do it, one by one." At first we pushed back, but peer pressure's a hell of a thing. One by one we walked up, pressed the button, and ran back to the sidewalk. Every time, the result was the same. Nothing happened. We left thinking we were hilarious. Took selfies in front of the gate. Laughed all the way home. But the next morning, everything started to shift. I found an envelope on my porch. No stamp. No markings. Inside was a photo. A still frame. It was me, standing at the front door of the Miller Lane house. But the photo was taken from inside the house. You could see the dirty hallway behind me. And my hand was frozen, still pressing the bell. I called Kyle. He didn't pick up. I called Marcus. Same thing. Finally, Claire picked up. She was crying. She got one too. So did her little brother, who wasn't even with us that night. It was like whoever took the photos knew too much. Later that day, Kyle texted the group chat one sentence. "I saw someone at my window last night." That was it. We didn't hear from him after that. That night, Claire came over. She didn't want to be alone. We stayed up watching the footage from our front porch cams, trying to find anything. Movement, figures, shadows. But around 3:03 a.m., her feed glitched, froze for 10 seconds. When it resumed, someone was standing at the bottom of her steps, not moving, just watching the door. It looked like Kyle. Same jacket, same posture, but his head was tilted too far, like his neck didn't work right. We checked the footage again, frame by frame. The figure never blinked, never breathed, just stood there. Then Claire whispered, "He rang my doorbell last night too." After that night, Claire stopped answering her phone. I went by her place the next afternoon. Her car was still in the driveway, but the windows were covered, the blinds pulled tight. Even in the middle of the day, I knocked. Nothing. I called her name. Still nothing. I left after a few minutes, something in my chest pulling tighter the longer I stayed there. I felt watched, like eyes were just barely out of reach. That night, I stayed up again. I didn't want to sleep. Every part of me screamed to keep moving, to stay awake. At 3:03 a.m., my doorbell rang. Just once. Just like at the Miller Lane house. I had unplugged it hours earlier, but I heard it. Loud. Clear. I jumped up, phone in hand, and checked the cam feed. It was black. Nothing. No signal. I grabbed the baseball bat from under the bed and crept to the living room. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. The front porch was quiet. Nothing moved. But when I turned toward the kitchen, the back door was open. Wide open. And there, standing in the doorway, was Marcus. Except it wasn't. It looked like him, sure. Same hoodie, same messy hair. But the eyes were wrong. They were too wide, too still. No life, no soul. I stepped back, and it stepped forward. I swung the bat, but it vanished, just blinked out of existence. I slammed the door and locked it, breathing like I'd just run 10 miles. My phone buzzed. One new notification. Motion detected. The porch cam showed someone standing at my front door. It was Claire, but she was smiling too much. I watched in horror as she tilted her head, raised one hand, and pointed straight at the camera. Then she mouthed something. "You're next." I shut the app and ran upstairs, locked my bedroom door, Saturday in the corner with the lights on until sunrise. The next day I checked the footage again. The feed was gone, not corrupted, deleted. All clips from the last 3 nights erased like they never existed. I went to the Miller Lane house again, desperate for some kind of closure. The house was completely gone, bulldozed, just a dirt lot surrounded by yellow tape. When I asked the construction crew what happened, one guy told me the house hadn't been there for years, said it burned down after some kids disappeared back in the 90s. I told him we'd just been there. He looked at me like I was insane. I pulled out my phone to show him the pictures, the videos, the camera feed, but everything was gone. All files, every photo, every contact from that night, even Claire's number, gone. All I had left was one voicemail, received at 3:03 a.m. I played it once. It was the sound of a doorbell, followed by my own voice whispering from inside the speaker, "Let them in." Story 3. When Liz and I bought the old house on Ridge Hollow, we were just looking for space, quiet, and something affordable enough that we could actually build a life together. It was one of those old 2-story farmhouses, the kind with big porches, weird creaky floors, and personality. The listing said needs work, which was an understatement, but it had charm. We moved in at the beginning of March. The first week was nothing but unpacking, scraping, wallpaper, and sanding old paint. But on the 6th night, we heard the doorbell. That might not sound strange, except the doorbell didn't work. We knew it didn't. It was an old rusted button with frayed wires and no power. I'd taken it apart myself the day we moved in, intending to replace it eventually. The chime box inside was broken too, hanging loose on the wall. But at exactly 1:47 a.m., we heard it. One short ding-dong. Clear. Loud. Like something from a memory. Liz sat up first, blinking in the dark. I thought it had been a dream, until I saw her eyes. She'd heard it too. I went to the front door with a flashlight, stepped out onto the porch barefoot. Wind pushed the swing gently. No cars, no people, no footprints. We went back to bed thinking maybe it was a strange echo or noise from the house settling, but it happened again the next night. Same time, same sound. We started recording everything. Audio, motion cameras. I even rewired the chime just to be sure. Still broken, still impossible, and yet the sound kept coming. Always at 1:47. Always just once. Then it started changing. By the fifth night, the chime was followed by scratching. Not on the outside of the door, on the inside. I pulled it open with a hammer in my hand. The air felt wrong. Still, like everything was holding its breath. I checked every room, attic to the basement. Nothing. The next morning, Liz found something carved into the wall behind the couch. A small symbol, a circle with a vertical line slashed through it. Neither of us had seen it before. Neither of us wanted to know what it meant. That day, we decided to take a break, go into town, stay with her sister for the weekend. But before we could leave, we found something that stopped us cold. In the hallway mirror, drawn in fog, were the words, "Don't answer again." We hadn't touched the mirror. The heater wasn't even on. There was no condensation anywhere else. We packed in silence and drove off without even locking the front door. When we came back 3 days later, the entire house smelled like wet soil. All the lights were off. Power breaker flipped, but nothing had been tripped. Every single mirror in the house was shattered, except one, the one in our bedroom. It had handprints on it, small, child-sized. But there were no children living anywhere near us, and we had no idea what would happen if we stayed one more night. We thought leaving for a few days would reset things, give the house time to breathe without us. But when we returned and found those tiny handprints on the last unbroken mirror, we realized whatever this was .it hadn't left. It had been waiting. That night, we didn't sleep. Liz curled up on the couch with a blanket over her shoulders, while I walked through the halls, flashlight in hand, every floorboard creak, twisting tighter in my spine. At exactly 1:47 a.m., the doorbell rang again. 2 sharp notes, clean and clear, like they were played by a hand we couldn't see. I stood in front of the door, unmoving. Liz called my name from behind, her voice barely above a whisper. She asked if I was going to open it. I told her no, not this time. I'd seen enough horror movies to know how that ends. But the chime kept echoing in my head, long after it stopped. The next morning, we found something new. A drawing pinned to the fridge with one of our own magnets. It was a child's sketch, crude lines, but clear enough. It showed 2 people, a man and a woman, lying in bed, and something was standing over them. No face, no eyes, just long arms and a mouth drawn wide with red crayon. Liz dropped it when she saw it. We didn't have any crayons in the house. That evening, we made plans to sell, move out, forget this place. But before we could finalize anything, Liz disappeared. I woke up at 1:46 a.m., heart racing before I even opened my eyes. She wasn't in bed. I called her name. No answer. The house was still. I checked the kitchen, the bathroom, and the hall. Nothing. I was about to go downstairs when I heard the doorbell again. 1:47. Same exact tone, same volume. I ran to the front door, and this time, I opened it. There was no one outside, just the cold night air. But on the porch was a photograph, a Polaroid. It showed me standing at the open door, in my pajamas, flashlight in hand. The same pose I was in at that very moment, only the photo was old, faded, like it had been taken years ago. And behind me in the picture, standing at the top of the stairs, was Liz. But not Liz. Her eyes were empty, her mouth was open too wide, and her hands were pressed flat against the inside of the mirror in the hall. I turned, looked toward the hallway mirror. It was no longer cracked. It was clean, clear, and I saw her standing inside it, exactly as in the photo. Hands flat, eyes dead, mouth moving without sound. She was mouthing 3 words. "Let me out." I stumbled back, dropped the photo, turned to run, and the doorbell rang again. But it didn't sound like a bell anymore. It sounded like laughter, low, childlike, and it came from every wall. I never saw Liz again. No one believed me when I tried to explain. They said she probably ran off. That stress made me imagine things, but I never left that house. Because I think if I do, something else will be let out. I unplugged the bell, tore out the wiring, and every night at 1:47, it still rings. Always 2 notes. Always just once. And if I don't stand at the door and listen, the scratching starts again. Only now, it's coming from behind the mirrors.